I think we can start. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's ASBMR Virtual Capitol Hill Day training. My name is Patricia Ducy, and I'm the chair of the ASBMR Advocacy and Science Policy Committee. On behalf of the committee and from the entire ASBMR leadership, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. And I also want to thank you enormously for agreeing to volunteer to be present on our virtual Capitol Hill Day this year. This is a very important event. We are very excited about the possibilities that this event will give us. And you will see it's not that bad. It's actually quite fun to talk to people about what we all love to do and what we want to do even more. So first of all, Anna Miller, who is our first top person at Smith-Kline, will bring us some news about sponsors today.
All right, thank you so much, Patricia. Yes, my name is Hannah Miller, ASBMR Senior Operations Coordinator. I am the main point of contact for ASBMR for this Hill Day event. But before we get started with our training, I want to acknowledge the generous support of our corporate sponsors, Amgen, Hologic, and UCB. Each of them were kind enough to send a message of support and appreciation to each of you for participating in this year's ASBMR Hill Day, which I will share now. First, we'll start with Amgen. Amgen is pleased to support ASBMR's 2022 Virtual Capitol Hill Day. Our organizations share a common passion, improving education, awareness, and access to bone and musculoskeletal health services and treatments. Amgen has been researching solutions for osteoporosis for more than 20 years. Despite significant strides in the field of osteoporosis, progress in prevention and treatment has been relatively stagnant. More screening and treatment can help mitigate the toll of the disease. However, DEXA scans are on the decline, which may in part be due to the declining Medicare reimbursement rate, which has resulted in diminished diagnosis and treatment. Each year, osteoporosis-related fractures account for 432,000 hospital admissions, 2.5 million medical office visits, and 180,000 nursing home admissions. Given the aging population in the US, osteoporosis will be responsible for approximately 3 million fractures, and annual direct costs from osteoporosis are expected to reach approximately $25.3 billion by 2025. We can all imagine a better future for patients living with osteoporosis. There is deep knowledge regarding the pathophysiology of the disease, tools to identify risk, communities to support patients, and innovative solutions to help prevent and treat the disease. The science, data, supports, and technology all exist. We just need to pool these resources together and identify how to collectively bring solutions to patients in the most effective and impactful way, to work in a predict and prevent mindset instead of a break and fix it model. Over the past 10 years, Amgen has worked in collaboration with ASBMR and the Fracture Prevention Coalition's effort on Capitol Hill to increase reimbursement for these proven yet underutilized preventative screening services in the office setting, as we know, and that previous cuts to the DEXA reimbursement impose a barrier to patients' access for osteoporosis diagnosis and treatment. We appreciate your partnership and continued advocacy on this important issue. With your help and engagement with policymakers, we can make concerted strides towards enacting the legislation and ultimately a better future for the patients we all serve. Thanks again to ASBMR, best wishes to the trainees, and for a successful Hill Day. The second message is from Hologic. Hologic is pleased to support ASBMR's 2022 Virtual Hill Day. Hologic has a long-standing partnership with ASBMR and appreciates your continued support. Our organization share a common passion, improving education, awareness, and access to bone and musculoskeletal health services. We have been fortunate enough to contribute to that passion through our Horizons DEXA system that offers a complete fracture risk assessment, a single energy femur exam, vertebral fracture assessments, and advanced body composition assessment. Horizon DEXA system can support trabecular bone score software by MetaMaps, which enables capturing up to 30% more patients at risk of fracture. Hologic is committed to skeletal health and increasing patient access to screening, which is critical to improve health outcomes. Over the past 10 years, we have worked in collaboration with the Fracture Prevention Coalition's effort on Capitol Hill to increase Medicare reimbursements for those proven yet underutilized preventative services in the office setting. As we know that previous cuts to reimbursement impose a barrier to patient access. We appreciate your continued support and advocacy on this important issue and know that today's efforts will put us much closer to enacting this bill during the 117th Congress. Thanks again to ASBMR and best wishes to the trainees and for a successful Hill Day. One last message from UCB, my apologies. UCB is honored to support ASBMR's 2022 Virtual Hill Day. At UCB, we work to improve patients' lives and reduce the significant social and individual burden of osteoporosis by improving the care pathway for patients who suffered a fragility fracture, including identification of the many undiagnosed fractures at the spine and supporting better coordination of care and policy changes. While breakthroughs have occurred in recent years, patients still experience significant unmet needs. The possibilities to improve the lives of people living with osteoporosis are vast. We understand the challenges that patients face and understand that they are individuals with dreams and goals they long to achieve. We will stop at nothing to help them achieve those dreams. Our collaboration with ASBMR is built on that purpose. We appreciate your continued support and advocacy on closing the osteoporosis treatment gap. Thanks to ASBMR, best wishes to the trainees and for a successful Hill Day. Once again, I'd like to thank our sponsors for helping with this event.
Thank you, Anna. So I would like now to introduce our speakers today. So the first one will be Jennifer Zeitzer. She's the Director of Public Affairs at FACEP, and she is a very seasoned advocate for science. And then we will hear from Lincoln Clapper. She is a CSO at Advocacy Associates, who is responsible for the platform that we will be using during our field day. You will see it's a fantastic tool. It works very well, and he's going to explain to us how it works and everything we can do with it. So again, the agenda for our session today, Jennifer will start with providing us some information about our virtual day, how to be a successful advocate, what are the questions we may have, how we should answer, and so on. Then Lincoln will walk us through the website and the tools that we will be using during the Hill Day. After that, I will be reviewing our Hill Day Ask and all the materials that we can leave behind. And finally, myself and Anna will be happy to answer all your questions. And as a matter of fact, we will not have a live session for the question. Please enter your question in the Q&A system from the Zoom meeting, and I will read your questions, and then we will have all the answers at that time, at the end of the meeting. One more thing is that this training session is recorded and it will be available on the ASBMR website. You will receive an email with a link to direct you to this recorded session if you need. And it will also be available to everyone on the website. If you have colleagues that want to join or listen to the session, please do so, don't hesitate. And with that, I think we can start our presentation, and I will give the podium to Jennifer Zeitzer.
Thank you, Dr. Ducey, and thank you to ASBMR for having me back. We really value your membership in FACEP, the Federation, and are looking forward to working with you to help you achieve your advocacy goals for this year. Next slide. Hannah asked that I kind of set the stage and give you a little bit of background about what things are like on Capitol Hill right now, and then we'll move into more of the advocacy training and talking about what exactly you're going to be asking for in your meetings on Capitol Hill virtually. And please remember to ask for something, because if not, you will absolutely confuse the people that you are meeting with. They are used to being asked to do something. So in case you've been out of the country for a while and haven't been paying attention, things are kind of interesting on Capitol Hill right now. We're in the second session of the current Congress, the 117th Congress. The Senate is 50-50, with Vice President Harris deciding tied votes, and she's already set a modern day record for having to do that. So that's kind of an interesting twist. House Democrats are operating with one of the smallest majorities that they've had in recent history. These are numbers as of March 31st. There are still currently 5 vacant seats. All 435 members of the House are up for re-election on November 8th, and believe it or not, the 2022 midterms have already started. And then finally, you know, history suggests that midterm elections generally favor the party who's not in control of the White House. So there's just a lot of speculation right now on Capitol Hill about either the House and or the Senate flipping control after the elections in November. And that speculation is only going to get worse over the next couple of months. But the good news is that Congress is still very focused on actually getting things done. In fact, you're having this Advocacy Day at the perfect time. Congress is in session for a 5-week block where they really will be sprinting to pass bills and work on key issues, including what you're here to talk about, the 2023 budget for the federal science agencies. They're just getting started on that. They've made 0 decisions, so you have the maximum amount of influence that you will have. In addition, we can't escape from COVID. There's another supplemental funding request pending on Capitol Hill that may or may not get resolved over the next couple of weeks. In addition, you may have been hearing a lot about this Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health, or ARPA-H, a possible new entity that for now appears to be located or going to be located within NIH to accelerate some groundbreaking risky research. Right now that agency doesn't exist, but they do have funding, which is a pretty unique position to be in. And then finally, there's 2 very large pieces of legislation working their way through both the House and Senate to improve the competitiveness of the U.S. research enterprise. You may have heard of it, called the Bipartisan Innovation Act, and that is expected to pass sometime this fall. So just a lot going on. Hannah? In terms of where things stand for the federal research agencies, I noted that we're just beginning the 2023 process. This will actually be the budget for NIH and the other agencies, as you know, for the period that begins October 1, 2022. So Congress passed Congress passed the fiscal year 2022 budget 6 months late at the end of March, which was quite unfortunate. I guess the good news there is that NIH got another $2 billion increase, which is now in the process of being parceled out in the form of research grants to institutions and researchers across the country. So the other agencies also got increases as well too. So I think the election will certainly make the fiscal year 2023 budget late again. Hopefully it won't be as late though as 2022. Next slide. One thing I wanted to make sure that I explained to you, because I think it's a useful talking point when you're making your asks in your meetings, and that is when NIH gets a $2 billion increase, believe it or not, that money does not go as far as you might think. And you, meaning members of Congress, might think. I think researchers understand exactly how far that doesn't go. And part of the reason is that increases in NIH appropriations certainly help fund additional research, but biomedical research inflation is also a factor that impacts NIH's capacity to fund new research. So if you look at the last couple of increases for NIH, what you'll see in this bar chart is that almost $1 billion a year is just needed to keep pace with inflation. So when NIH gets a $2 billion increase, almost about half of that is eaten up just by them trying to make sure that they keep pace with biomedical research inflation. We are anticipating for fiscal year 2022, that's actually going to be even worse. NIH just recently recalculated the inflationary figure for fiscal year 2022. They think it's about 2.6%. I think the reality is going to be much different. And anybody who's tried to buy lab supplies lately could attest that it's actually much worse than what NIH thinks. In addition, the costs of labor are going up. Also by a congressional mandate to pay our NRSA scholars a bit more. So that's a good talking point when Congress says, what did the NIH do with a $2 billion increase? You can say, well, about $1 billion of that just meant to go with inflation. So NIH is funding more grants with this money, but not as much as you might think. So next slide. So for what do things look like for fiscal year 2023 for the period that begins on October 1 of this year? There's a good news and bad news scenario. I guess the good news is that those budget caps that were in place for 10 years from 2011 to 2021 that really slowed down the rate of spending on discretionary programs such as NIH. They have disappeared. They're no longer law. And in fact, for fiscal year 2022, because there was no limit on discretionary spending, Congress kind of had a little bit more flexibility, and they exercised that. The budget that Congress approved in late March to cover fiscal year 2022 included about a 9% over FY 2021 increase in discretionary spending. That's part of the reason why NIH got a $2 billion increase. In addition, Congress has not even finalized the top line spending limit for fiscal year 2023 yet. To give you a sense of where we are, the chairs of the House and Senate Appropriations Committees and their Republican counterparts met for the first time last Thursday to begin the conversations about this. And the readout from that meeting was we settled nothing. So right now, the sky's the limit in terms of spending. So you should keep that in mind when you don't be shy about making your ask, because right now there's no brakes on budgets and spending. Next slide. In addition, there's been no talk, those budget caps have expired and there's been no talk of reinstating them. The Biden budget request was submitted about 7 weeks late. So Congress is now only starting to begin to look through the Biden request. We can expect to see some moderate progress on the 12 individual spending bills, just based on what we're hearing from Capitol Hill as of the last week or two. The House Appropriations Committee leadership has put together a tentative schedule for considering the individual bills. I will note that this is very tentative. It's just been it's really what's in the heads of the leadership. This has not been agreed to by anybody, but as you can see, they're hoping to start beginning the subcommittee markups, the first step in that process, by the middle of June, and then have everything wrapped up, at least at the Appropriations Committee level, by the end of June. And that would then allow those bills approved by the Appropriations Committee to go to the full House for votes, hopefully this summer, in July, before Congress breaks for its long 5-week August recess. The Senate Appropriations Committee has not announced a schedule, and if you were paying attention last year, the big holdup was in the Senate. So that is a little bit of concern right now, is that the Senate will likely be lagging as usual. And then finally, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but we do need to prepare ourselves. We will absolutely see NIH operating on a continuing resolution, probably from September through at least Thanksgiving of this year. There's just not enough time to finish these appropriations bills before the election becomes the all-consuming thing. So I wouldn't worry about that too much right now. And well, that's why it's also really good that you're having these visits to remind the appropriators that it's important for them to do their jobs at the beginning of this process, even if we do wind up with a continuing resolution. What happens after the election is anybody's guess. And I won't even speculate right now. It's too early. Next slide. Here is just kind of I call this the budget fantasy chart, because it really is a fantasy in terms of, the timeline for when things are happening. Right now, obviously, we're in May, and we're beginning to see the appropriations committees talk about the two big steps that they have to take. One is they have to receive what's called their 302A allocation, or that top line or total amount of spending that they have, and then that gets divided among the 12 subcommittees, and there's a big fight for that money. And hopefully we'll see some action on the individual bills from June through September. But beyond that, it's a little hard to predict. Hannah, next slide. So I did want to get folks just a little bit of a background on the 2023 budget request from the administration, just in case you were asked about this during your meetings. I believe it's next week. So the budget was finally released on May 28th. It was about 7 weeks late. It was a total request of about $5.8 trillion. The part of that you need to worry about is what's called the discretionary spending request. That's what the appropriators really have the power to make decisions over. So it requested about a 9.4 increase for non-defense bills and about a 4% increase for defense. That 9.4% increase is fairly consistent with what happened for fiscal year 2022. So if you wanted to try and make a prediction about what would happen for NIH, you could reasonably guess that NIH could be poised for another multi-billion-dollar increase. That's not a guarantee. guarantee, and you all need to do your jobs as advocates to convince Congress that NIH needs that money. In addition, the administration requested a little over $81 billion to be spent over 5 years for pandemic response and preparedness, and we'll see if that money materializes. Next slide. So for the agencies, here's a breakdown of the funding. NIH was a little bit disappointing, I have to be honest. So the president requested a total of $49.2 billion for NIH, but buried within that was this $4 billion request for ARPA-H, or the Advanced Research Project Agency for Health. So when you backed out that number, it really, NIH, there was no increase to the NIH-based budget. The request was about 0.6%. NIH has taken a lot of criticism for this. They have issued actually a response to the community that was authored by Acting Director Larry Tabak about 2 weeks ago. What they said was they had to put their budget request together before they received their final 2022 budget. They were basing it on at that time, NIH was operating under a continuing resolution that held them flat to the FY 2021 budget, and that it was not their intent to shortchange the request for NIH, but because the budget was so late being approved by Congress, they were not able to amend the request before the budget request for 23 got sent to Capitol Hill. NSF and the other agencies also received some similar increases. So if you get questions about this, obviously you can use the NIH line or you can elect not to answer it because it's not your budget request, it was the administration's. I wouldn't worry too much about this as well. Congress always rewrites the administration's budget request regardless of who's president. It's simply what the White House wants, and Congress will exercise its own influence and its own decision-making authority. Next question. Oh, sorry, next slide. I want to make sure that I give people, good marching orders before you go off to your meetings. There's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about the support for NIH. There's still strong bipartisan support. You can leverage that in your ask next week. Over the period between 2016 and 2022, there was about a $14 billion cumulative increase for NIH. So clearly it's an agency that Congress cares about. Various letters are circulating right now on Capitol Hill, and about 173 members of the House already signed on to a letter requesting a $4 billion increase for NIH in fiscal year 2023. So that's a great way to get started. That letter has closed down, so you can't ask anybody to sign it now, but certainly you may hear from offices that said, we signed the letter, to which you should say, thank you so much. In addition, we know that in the last couple of years, as NIH has gotten more and more funding, they've funded more grants, so that's good. And Congress, believe it or not, despite the headlines, is actually still capable of legislating and doing their job. COVID's been a great reminder about why we need more money for federal research. And the other thing too is there are some very senior members of the Appropriations Committee, looking at you, Senator Shelby, you, Senator Leahy, who will be retiring after the midterm elections this fall, and will likely want to finish those 2023 spending bills before they're no longer in office. They've got legacies and programs that they want to fund. So again, a good time to be up on Capitol Hill virtually. Next slide. And just as we wind up here, a reminder about the ask. The $50 billion request for NIH would be about $5 billion above fiscal year 2022. We believe that this would allow NIH to continue creating more opportunities for the next generation of researchers, funding more grants. Given the issue with inflation, this would also allow NIH to provide a 5% increase across their various institutes and centers to more equally distribute funding so that research can be funded. This is a recommendation that was drafted by FASB with support from ASBMR and others in our community. The other big ask is on S1943, HR 357, the Increasing Access to Osteoporosis Testing for Medicare Beneficiaries Act of 2021, a little bit of a mouthful. Patricia, I know you and Hannah will talk a little bit about this later on. But this is a bill to improve access to bone mass measurement benefits under the Medicare program and create a better reimbursement scheme for DXA tests for osteoporosis. Next slide. So as you prepare for your meetings next week, kind of wanted to give you a sense of what you might hear. FASB had a virtual Capitol Hill day last month, actually in March, and we heard a lot of this from the offices we met with. You probably hear something about the deficit being big and cuts will have to be made. I think you can kind of bypass that and just pivot to your talking points that, we really do need to increase funding for biomedical research in this country. If someone wants to pressure you on that point, you can point out that what we spend on biomedical research is about 2% of the overall federal budget. So this is not the reason why the deficit is going up. You may also hear NIH is a bipartisan priority. You don't have anything to worry about. You can certainly thank the members of Congress and the staff you meet with for that reassurance, but also let them know that as advocates, you cannot take that for granted, and you're aware that there's a lot of competition for funding for the various agencies and programs, and that you, of course, appreciate any support that NIH will get. This one you might not hear so much, but Representative Smith supports increasing the NIH budget. Why aren't you meeting with the other side? And you can assure them that ASBMR does not take sides on these things, that you're meeting with Republicans and Democrats and independents and offices across Capitol Hill, because you understand that every single member of Congress gets a chance to vote on these budget bills. You may get chastised a little bit, or may be told you're asking for a lot of money for NIH. What makes you say that you can do this, or why do you need this? This is where I would encourage you to just tell a personal story about what funding means to you and your research. You can, if you have this knowledge, you can talk a little bit about what goes into the various grants that you submit to NIH. How much do things cost? What is what is a $1 million research grant? What does that really buy? And you can talk about collaborations, the jobs that are provided at your university or in your community. Just help them understand that while it may seem like a lot of money, it all goes for a good purpose. Another thing you may get asked, and I would encourage you not to fall into this trap, if someone says, well, what should we cut so we can increase funding for NIH? Here you can say, I'm not an expert on the federal budget. I'm here to advocate on behalf of NIH funding. I trust that Congress will make good decisions on behalf of the American public, and then pivot back to your talking points about what more funding for NIH would buy. But you do not need to feel pressured to answer that question if they say, but tell us what we need to cut, because that is not your job as an advocate. And then finally, this one, Hannah, you might have to answer, is there a cost estimate for the Medicare osteoporosis testing bill? You may get that question from someone who's interested in co-sponsoring. Next slide, Hannah. So as I wrap up, a couple reminders and tips to make your meetings go well. I think the most effective thing you can do is tell your story, talk about the importance of these federal dollars to your research, your institution, your lab. Try and put your research in the broader context of how it addresses some of these issues, like how does it improve health? How does it support local jobs? How does it make the US more innovative and competitive? If possible, and you guys should be able to do this, connect your research to a specific disease or research question. So feel free to talk about any of the research and the conditions in the bone and mineral space. You can also explain, well, what happens if NIH can't fund your research? Where else can you get funding, if that's even possible? What happens if funding from NIH dries up for your lab? And then you can also share what motivated you to become a researcher, and you can be honest. You can also talk about the challenges you face and why you continue to work in this field. And then next. A couple of reminders to make your meetings go well, and I think Lincoln will have additional thoughts on this as well too. Make sure you log on promptly to your meeting. Be patient if someone is running late. They're probably just going to be joining the Zoom very quickly. Be sure to turn off cell phones or any other distracting noises that might be heard on the Zoom, and expect to have about 15-20 minutes for each meeting. Important to let the people that you're meeting with know who they're talking to. A quick introduction is more than sufficient. No need to recite your entire CV. You'll use all your meeting time on that. It's appropriate to just jump in quickly and get to your ask and your messaging, and be sure to try and explain why the issue matters to the state or the district. Offer to be of assistance as a member of ASBMR and your own institution. And this is a good one. Do not guess. If you get answered a question that you can't answer, it is perfectly appropriate to say, I don't know, but I or someone else from ASBMR will get back to you in the next day or two with the answer. Because if you give them a wrong answer or you guess, the aide that you're meeting with will remember that, and it'll be a hard time correcting the record. And also don't forget to exchange contact information. If you're using Zoom, you can just drop that in the chat or follow up afterwards. Next slide. Couple things you may run into as you do these virtual meetings. We call it troubleshooting. If you've done a meeting in person, you've probably had similar experiences. So everything's going great. You've walked through your talking points and you get the blank stare or absolutely no response from the congressional aide or the member of Congress you're talking to. First, check to make sure that the audio is working, which you don't have to do in person. But if the audio is working and they're just kind of staring at you, you can clarify and ask them, do you have any questions, or was our presentation clear? What else can we tell you to get them a little bit more engaged? If the person you're meeting with appears to be distracted during the virtual meeting, do what you can to engage them, to kind of get back on their radar screen, and try not to get too offended about that. Everybody's pretty busy these days. If the person you're meeting with doesn't appear to know anything about research, that's fine. That actually gives you an opportunity to really kind of educate them with some very basic information. You may also encounter a situation where you're meeting with an aide who maybe has been with that office for 2 or 3 days and has no idea what his or her boss's position is on the issue. And that's fine. Don't criticize them for that. But it is appropriate to say, well, we would appreciate it if you could check with your boss and let us know if they can sponsor the Medicare testing bill, or what the member of Congress's position on NIH funding is. And then this one hopefully will not happen to you, but an aide may make a partisan comment or a political comment, or ask your opinion about a political matter not related to your ask. Let those go by. I encourage you not to engage. If someone says something like, well, it's not going to matter after the midterms anyway, because the Republicans are going to control the House. Let it go and pivot back to your talking points and just say, well, regardless of what happens, what we really need to see is an increase in funding for NIH. So don't be too alarmed if someone tries to distract you. Next slide. I think this is just the wrap up. It's important to follow up from your meetings so that you can have a lasting impression. Really, really good idea to send a thank you note. Email is best, and you can just drop your contact information into that email. If you promised any follow-up information, please go ahead and send that. Pro tip though, links to online documents work best to evade the spam filters and security restrictions on Capitol Hill email boxes. Avoid at all possible, if you can, sending large files or PDFs or things with attachments, because that is most likely going to either get caught up in someone's spam folder or bounce back. You can use that thank you email to remind the staff or member of Congress that you met with about any outstanding requests that they may, or information they owe you. And then if there's any concerns or questions or anything that you want to report from the meetings, report that to ASBMR staff and they can follow up as necessary. And I believe that's my last slide. Oops, sorry, one more. Establishing long-term relationships. So treat these meetings next week as the beginning of a relationship, not the end of it. Know that relationship building takes time. One thing you can do is just kind of identify connections with your elected officials, not just that they represent you in the institution where you work, but if there's any kind of hometown connection. You need to do a job to be a better constituent. And by that, I mean making sure you subscribe to the electronic newsletter for your senators and representatives. Kind of keep an eye on them. What are they talking about? What issues are they flagging? If they're not talking about NIH funding, that means you have more work to do. You can follow your elected officials on social media. And then if you have an opportunity to attend a virtual town hall meeting or other local event, I strongly encourage you to do that. And if you sign up for their newsletter, you will get notifications about those. It's a good idea to stay in touch throughout the year, but there's a fine line between being helpful and just being a pest. And that line is, sending updates about relevant topics or research that you discussed. No need to spam them every month. And keep elected officials abreast of any exciting developments of your institution. So if you get that federal grant that you talked about, if you're opening a new research facility, they want to know about that, and they won't always find out from other sources. And then finally, all members of Congress love any kind of positive press, regardless of where it appears. So if you have a department or institution newsletter and you want to highlight your experience with your virtual visits, by all means, go ahead and do that. Write a great story and include some photos if you have them. So I believe that, yep. So that's it. And you can also follow FASB on social media where we have all of these things.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. This was very, very helpful as usual. Please, if you have questions for Jennifer, put them in the Q&A section and we will answer all the questions. She will answer all your questions at the end of the meeting. We are going to move on to our second presentation by Lincoln Clapper, who will present a platform that we are going to use during this Hill Day. Lincoln, this is for you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lincoln Clapper. I'm part of the Advocacy Associates team here in DC, and we're really excited to partner with you all again this year for your virtual Hill Day. And I just want to spend the next 10 minutes or so walking everybody through the platform that you're going to be using. If you participated in this event last year, a lot of this will look familiar. We have made a few updates and changes, so this will just be a nice refresher for everyone and get you up to speed on the new features that we have this year. So that being said, we'll jump right into it. And if you have any questions along the way, as mentioned earlier, put them in the Q&A and we'll be able to answer them at the end. But you should have all gotten an email from us earlier today. Today is May 5th, if you're watching this as a recording. And that email would have come from Advocacy Day at advocacyassociates.com. And if you didn't get that in your inbox, check your spam or junk. It's probably sitting there. If you do find it there, please unmark it as spam, because this is going to be our main way of communicating with you in terms of time changes, scheduling updates, cancellations, additions. All of that is going to come through over email. So we want to make sure you're getting that correspondence. Now, within that email are two important pieces of information. The first one will be a link to your schedule, which you'll see in the upper right corner. And then in the middle part will be your login credentials. So you'll see a username and a password that our system has generated for you. So when you click on the link to access your schedule, you'll be taken to a login page that'll look similar to this. That's where you're going to want to enter those credentials. So put your email in along with that temporary password that we provided to you, and then click the sign in button. From there, you'll be prompted to change that password to your own password. And once you've met all the requirements for the password, you'll see everything turn green in terms of the filter settings. Once you've done that, click send, and then you'll be launched into your schedule. Now, once you've done this, whether you're on a computer or a laptop or tablet or whatever you plan on taking these meetings from next week, this will be the only time you'll be asked to do this. So every time you revisit your schedule, you will stay logged in, very much like an app on your phone. So you won't be asked to re-log in every time you visit. Now, if you become logged out, you're trying to access from a new computer and you forgot your password, you can easily reset it. There will be a link on the homepage. It's a very standard process, very similar to anything you've ever done online before in terms of resetting a password. If you're having any issues at that point, there is a contact link in that initial email. So go ahead and click on that. You'll be able to submit a ticket to our support team, and they'll reach out to you on an individual basis to get any technical issues resolved. Now, once you're logged in, you'll see a home dashboard that'll look similar to this. All of your confirmed meetings will have a time next to them. Anything that's still pending will show as TBD on the bottom of the schedule. That just means we're still working on a time with that office. We may be having to reschedule something. It's very common at this point to still have a few of these on your schedule, so don't be alarmed if you see them. Now that you've logged into your schedule, moving forward, you will get a notification email when these meetings do become confirmed on your schedule. So you'll be very much in the loop in the days leading up to your event about when they get confirmed, and you'll see them slotted in on your schedule appropriately. All times on your schedule are going to be displayed in the time zone you're located in. And this is a new feature we've added from last year where, long story short, your times will automatically adjust based on your location. So you do not need to do any time conversions. Your schedule will automatically adjust based on your location. Now, to get the information for each meeting, you just want to click on any part of the module there. So anywhere within that red box is fine. It'll launch you into that specific meeting dashboard. So you'll see the time and date again at the top, followed by who you're actually going to be speaking with in the office, whether it's staff, member of Congress, or both. If there's been a meeting lead assigned to your meeting, you'll see that person's name displayed here. If not, then this area won't show at all. In order to access the video component, you're going to want to click on that green Join Online Meeting button. That'll open up the video portion. I would say expect to engage with the Zoom platform 99% of the time. There's a few offices that may use Teams or WebEx, etc., but the same concept applies. Just click that button and it'll open up whatever dashboard's necessary for you to access via video. Now, if you can only dial into the meeting, you'll have that option as well. Follow the instructions in this area here if you need to dial in. All your talking points will be in the talking points module here, followed by all of your documents in the documents module beneath that. If you click on each document, it'll open right on up for you, so you don't need to download anything. It'll open up on a separate tab where you can then toggle back and forth between your schedule, your documents, and the Zoom platform all at the same time. The attendees section will show all the attendees who are going to be in that meeting. There may also be some contact information displayed there. You can also turn this off if you click on your name in the upper right-hand corner and then click on the privacy tab. You can hide that information if you prefer. This just allows people to touch base with each other outside the platform if they need to. You can also chat with each other inside the platform with our peer-to-peer chat function. So if you click on the blue chat bubble, you can send direct messages to other attendees. If somebody sends a message to you this way, you will get a notification about that from the platform. On the left-hand side is our report form area. The first one is the check-in feature. It's basically an attendance report. So make sure to click that button either before or after each meeting, because we'll be sending these results to the government affairs team after this event. Beneath that will be an ability for you to send a thank you email. We'll pull up a script that's already been crafted for you by the government affairs team. You can, of course, personalize it and customize it however you see fit, but you'll see a lot of that work has already been done for you. It also will automatically pull the staffer's email for who you met with, so you'll have that information handy. You can open and send this in one of two ways. Click the blue open email button at the top, which will pull up whatever native platform is on your computer. So for me, I have Microsoft Outlook. That would pull up a Microsoft Outlook for me to send. If you're going to send this through something web-based like Gmail or Yahoo, etc., you can copy this information with those 3 copy clipboard buttons beneath it and then paste it into the email client of your choice. Beneath that will be a meeting report form. This will pull up a specific list of questions that you'll need to answer for each meeting. So go through and answer those once the meeting concludes. When you get to the bottom, you'll see a submit button to validate your answers. And again, you'll do this for each meeting on your schedule. Beneath that is a take notes feature. This is basically a blank notepad. So if you, instead of using pen or paper, you can sort of keep all those freehand style notes here in one place. It's optional. You don't need to use it, but it is really just an extra resource for you. Beneath that is an option to select if the member of Congress attended or did not attend. This is a critical data point we try to get, and we can only get it from you because you're the attendees in the meeting. Sometimes the meeting may be scheduled with a member of Congress, but they get pulled away to votes, or they're stuck at a committee hearing and they can't make it. So it's very helpful to have this information from a debrief perspective. So please mark one of those options as well. Beneath that, if you're social media fans, you can access your Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn if you'd like to drop a post on any of those platforms. Once the meeting concludes, click on the Meetings tab. That'll take you back to the homepage, and then you can go to that next meeting on your schedule. The Legislators tab will take you to an area where you can view bios for everybody you're meeting with, such as this. It'll also pull up links to their social media pages if you want to explore those further. The Bills tab will pull up any relevant bills you may be tracking for your event. If it's been voted on by that member, you'll see their vote history at the bottom of that bill. The News tab will pull any relevant news articles that they've been mentioned in. You can read about those online. And the Committees tab will show all the committees they currently sit on. The Messages tab will show those direct peer-to-peer messages between yourself and other advocates. The directory is a master directory of everyone in the event, so you can contact people outside your meetings if you need to. And the Support tab will be your best friend for anything and everything support, whether it's scheduling support, technical support, you can't make a meeting, which we absolutely need to know about. All of that should be run through support. So submit this ticket, This will really be the fastest, most efficient way to get any question resolved. The More tab is basically a drop-down menu of all the content I've already reviewed, just a way to access it from the home page. There may be some additional resources in there, like links to other websites, maybe an overall event feedback survey. If you're tracking any bills, there will also be a bills tab there, which will pull up a list of those bills once you click on it. And if you click into the bill, it'll actually show you co-sponsors, the status of the bill, a summary on it. You'll have a host of information there. If you're not tracking any bills in this area, we'll be blank entirely. Okay, last slide here. So again, check your spam or junk folder if you haven't gotten that email from us today. Our domain is at advocacyassociates.com. Sometimes you might need that in your settings to unmark as a spam. We're asking everybody to get in the meeting 10 minutes prior to the start time on your schedule, whether it's dial in or via video, just to make sure you can touch base with the other attendees in your group about roles, get any technical glitches out of the way. That way the meeting can start right on time. All times on your schedule are going to be shown in the time zone you're located in when viewing it. So again, you won't need to do any time conversions. You're going to get a reminder email from us 1 hour prior to each meeting throughout the course of the day. This will help keep you on track. It'll also include a link to your schedule in it, which will make it really easy to get in and out of your portal. There also will be, if the office doesn't join your meeting within 10 minutes past the start time, please let us know. There will be a help number in the support tab for you to call for an issue like that, but please do give them a 10-minute buffer to join before letting us know. These meetings may go anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, so just have your talking points prepared accordingly. Any changes to your schedule the day of the event is going to come through over email. So again, make sure you're monitoring that regularly. And then the last three, I think we're all experts at this point. Just make sure you're in an area with good Wi-Fi connection, as again, most, if not all, will have a video component to them. Please mute your microphone whenever you're not speaking, and just make sure you have an appropriate background. So that being said, very much looking forward to working with you all again this year, and I'll turn it back over to the team from here.
Thank you, Lincoln. And thank you for setting up this wonderful tool, because I've been using this your web page for several meetings, and it's extremely useful. I actually encourage everyone to go a little bit in advance and work around the website, because there is a lot of information that you can get there. So I will again move on to what we're going to talk about during these meetings or ask. So as Jennifer mentioned already, we're going to ask for a lot of money for NIH. We're going to ask for a final fund of $50 billion, which is a $5.1 billion increase compared to 2022. So this is not outrageous, and it comes also at a time where there is no cap anymore on budgets, so we can afford asking such a big increase. And it also comes at a time where everyone knows that inflation and the cost of everything is increasing tremendously. So you can really make a point saying that, yes, you have to increase your budget and according to inflation, and NIH has to do the same. And also you can mention that NIH is a very important source of funding for the next generation of researchers. We need grants, we need fellowship to form the next people that are going to come and make new discoveries. So it's a very important part of the NIH mission to train the future of science in the US. And you can also emphasize that this recommendation does not come out of nowhere. It's supported by us, but it's supported also by more than 3 other organizations. And FASEB is covering also for us. So it's a very important part of the meeting that you should really focus on for a large part. The second ask is more focused to the mission of the ASBMR. So there is this DEXA, what's called the DEXA bill, which has been introduced both in the Senate and in the House. And it's a bill to increase the access of DEXA tests for members of the Medicare program by increasing the amount of reimbursement from $40 to $98. And again, it's not something that is outrageous, and it's something that is deeply needed. So it's the same bill that we have been advocating for over the last 3 years, and I'm answering actually one of the questions from Sarah Dallas about this bill. Yes, this is the same bill that we try over and over to have passed, but everything takes time, and we have to be patient, and we have to push it again. But this time, we have a very, very decent chance at being successful. At the present time, we have already 59 sponsors and co-sponsors in the House. And we have 16 co-sponsors in the Senate, including Kirsten Cinemas, which is, as you know, one of the flip votes. So we can definitely make a mark this time by increasing the number of sponsors. The Senate bill has been referred to the Senate Finance Committee, which is also a good sign. And if you look at the list of sponsors, both in the House and in the Senate, you will see that it's definitely a bipartisan bill. And this is one of the few things that we can claim, saying, okay, everybody agrees. And this is an important bill because it addresses quite a common problem, and especially for boomers, which are going to vote in November. So I'm pretty sure any representatives will be happy to claim that, yes, we defended this bill and that it's going to be helpful for all the people in this district. One thing that I need to mention about this bill is that for now, most of our meetings will be from members that have not yet sponsored this bill. So we can really make a difference by advocating for it during our Hill Day. And you can check on the ASBMR website under the Advocacy tab who is sponsoring. And at that point, you can, if the members that you are meeting is already a sponsor, just say thank you, it's fantastic. And if he or she is not yet a supporter, yes, go for it. Go explain and spend time with it, because this is a year where we can make it happen. So we should definitely go for it. And with all that, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to, materials, that's right, thank you, Anna. We have a lot of materials, and it's listed on your webpage. You will have all the materials, and you can leave behind, which means essentially you can email you can attach them to your thank you email at the end of the meeting. And you don't necessarily have to send all the documents that are there, because there is a lot of documents about osteoporosis, about NIH funding, and so on. So if you have, during the meeting, if you have a very good connection or a very good discussion about one particular topic, mention that and send the fact sheet that is adapted to this discussion. You don't have to send the whole thing. And finally, there is a hashtag for people that are on social media, where you can join and mention everything that happens during your day. And this is the address. If you have any question, you can always ask Anna. She's fantastic. She will answer to you in within the next 10 minutes, and she knows everything. So do not hesitate. Thank you so much for all being here, for listening to us. Thank you again for accepting to volunteer and be present during our build day, and we'll be happy to answer your question. Please, if you have questions, send them to the Q&A. We have a few already. So, but if you have more, let us know. So we have a question from Rachel Johnson, who asked Jennifer if the 50 billion that we are asking for NIH includes the ARPA-H funding or not. And no, it's independent. We want $50 billion for NIH alone. And this is what we want. If they want to give extra money for the ARPA-H, yeah, well, they are welcome. But this is only for NIH. We also have a question from, do you know what is the research budget for the DoD? Jennifer, if you can answer in 1 minute.
Of course, yes. So I put that in the chat as well too, but the fiscal year 2022 final budget for the congressionally directed medical research program, which I believe is the program you're speaking about at DoD, was $1.5 billion. And then I also posted a link to, there's a Congressional Research Service report that does the breakdown by disease category for that funding.
Okay, we have the next question is about the DEXA bill. If it is the same than we already advocated for, yes, it is. And we are going to come back every year to pass them with it, as long as it's not fast. And then we have a question about how many people from the ASBMR will be in one room. That depends of the size of your district and of the meeting. You will find this information on your webpage from the Advocacy Associates website. You will see exactly who is attending the meeting. There should be a dedicated team leader in every meeting, and this team leader should be contacting you in advance, and you should have a plan of who would talk about what and in what order, because that's the best way to make the meetings functioning very well. So, but yes, you will find that on your webpage. For each meeting, you will know exactly who is with you. And finally, we have a question about where do we find the specific data on osteoporosis and research dollar. Again, this is on the website. On every page that you have, every meeting that you have all these documents, which are the leave behind documents. And this is where you're going to find all this information.
Yeah, I just like Deborah Wankert. Thank you so much for that question. Just want to add one quick thing to what Patricia said is, yes, there's a document in the leave behind documents, and it's under documents in your portal, and it will say your specific state and DEXA and osteoporosis. So you can clearly download that and get that information.
Okay, I think this is it. We have all the questions. Thank you again for attending this meeting, and I will see you on the big Hill Day next time.
Thank you everyone for attending. Jennifer, thank you so much for taking the time to present this information to our members. We really appreciate your time talking about NIH funding with us.
Have a great time, great visits, and I look forward to hearing how everything went.
Absolutely. All right, you guys have a great day, everyone. Thank you again, Patricia.
Bye.